Grace Point, welcome. Stand with us, sing with us, laugh with us, dance with us.
You're the soul who understands the skies that made me who I am. Through the drifting sands of time, I got your back, you got mine. If you bear a heavy load, I'll be your wheels, I'll be your road. See us through the thick and thin, for love and loss until the end. Oh, you carried me with you, from the highest of the peaks to the darkness of the blue. I was just too blind to see, like a lighthouse in a storm, you were always guiding me. Yeah, it's true. You carry me with you. From the day it all began, yeah, you were there, took my hand. When I fell a bit too deep, you watched me as I fell asleep. And when my head was in the clouds, you found a way to pull me out. Pick my heart up off the ground and showed me love was all around.
Yeah, come on, sing it.
Yeah, you carried me with you, from the highest of the peaks to the darkness of the blue. I was just too blind to see, like a lighthouse in a storm, you were always guiding me. Yeah, it's true. You carried me with you. Oh, we'll be sitting on the world together, watching as the days turn into night. We know how to brave the stormy weather. We're never giving up without a fight. If you should ever bear a heavy load, I'll be your wheels, I'll be the road. I'll see us through the thick and thin, for love and loss until the end. Oh, you carried me with you, from the highest of the peaks to the darkness of the blue. I was just too blind to see, like a lighthouse in a storm, you were always guiding me. Yeah, it's true. You carry me with you. Oh, you carry me with you.
So good. Look who we have back with us. It's our beloved Cassie, and she's actually here for this week and next week. So we get to see her. We're so glad that she's with us. We're glad that all of you have joined us too at Grace Point. We love that you're here. We hope that you feel safe and seen and loved exactly how you are. We're going to sing some songs. We've got a good message from Josh today, but again, we're so glad that you've joined us. Sing with us. See the morning coming in your eyes. Jubilee, Jubilee. It's shining brighter than the sun in the sky. Jubilee, Jubilee. Yeah.
I hear the joy bells ringing in your voice.
Jubilee, Jubilee.
You're kind of singing, cutting through the noise.
Jubilee, Jubilee. Oh, Jubilee.
Jubilee.
shining brighter than the sun in the sky.
Jubilee, Jubilee.
Oh yeah. Come on, let's sing a Jubilee. Oh, Jubilee.
Jubilee.
You're the kind of joy that I need. Yeah, it's shining brighter than the sun in the sky.
Jubilee, Jubilee.
One more time. Oh, Jubilee. You're the kind of joy that I need. It's shining brighter than the sun in the sky.
Jubilee, Jubilee.
Yeah.
Jubilee, Jubilee.
One more time.
Jubilee, Jubilee.
Blessed are the ones who do not bury all the broken pieces of their heart. Blessed are the tears of all the weary, pouring like a sky of falling stars. Blessed are the wounded ones in mourning, brave enough to show all of their scars. Blessed are the hurts that are not hidden, open to the healing touch of God. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope will be restored. It will come again. Blessed are the ones who walk in kindness, even in the face of great abuse. Blessed are the deeds that go unnoticed, serving with unguarded gratitude. Blessed are the ones to fight for justice, longing for the coming day of peace. Blessed are the ones who thirst for righteousness, welcoming the last, the lost, the least. Come on, sing it out. The kingdom is yours. Oh yes, the kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope will be restored. Peace will come. Sing it again. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Oh yes it is. Yes it is. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope will be restored. Peace will come again. Blessed are the ones who suffer violence, still have strength to love their enemies. Yeah. Blessed is the faith of those who persevere. Though they fall, they'll never know defeat. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. So hold on a little more. This is not the oh no. Hope will be restored. Peace will come again. Oh, the kingdom is yours and yours and yours. The kingdom is yours. So hold on a little more. This is not the hope will be restored. Hope will be restored. Peace will come again. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Oh no. This hope will be restored. Peace will come again.
Hey, good morning, Grace Point. We are so glad you're with us. You may have noticed that my voice is not with us as it normally is, and I apologize for that. I've dealt with laryngitis the better part of the last half of the week and weekend and hope to bounce back from that soon. But we're so glad you're here. We are online only today. We are excited to begin next Sunday, June 9th at 10:30 a.m. Central at Carter Lawrence Elementary School at 1118 12th Avenue South. We're really excited to be there. We just had some logistical things this week and wanted to make sure that we could work through those before we had our first Sunday. And so we hope you'll join us next week for that. Also wanted to take a minute to celebrate a little bit. It is Pride Month. Happy Pride, everybody. We're so excited for that. We're so excited to celebrate all month. We're excited for Nashville Pride at the end of the month and our Pride Sunday as well. Also, Inclusion Tennessee reached out to us this week and let us know that we have been nominated as the best affirming congregation in Nashville by the LGBTQ plus community, which is such a tremendous honor and a thrill. And we're so excited. Several other really wonderful faith communities are also on that list. And then there are others who are also in Nashville. And so we just celebrate every single community in Nashville and are everywhere that is moving toward love and inclusion and celebrating the belovedness and belonging of our LGBTQ plus siblings, which we do fully and wonderfully here at Grace Point. So if you would like to vote for Grace Point for this, we'll drop the link in the chat and you'll find it all over our social media throughout the month of June. We have an entire month to do that. So that's really, really exciting. We're really, really honored to be a part of that and on that list. So today we're beginning a brand new series, and today's going to be more of an introduction. We're going to really jump into it next week. But today we're going to begin a new series called Unlearning. And what we're going to talk about in this series are things that maybe we have or feel some sort of need to unlearn. But then we're also going to wonder, what do we do on the other side of the unlearning? So I grew up learning about God, about Jesus, and about the Bible in a musty old church basement in a holler in Eastern Kentucky. My earliest memories of the Bible are cemented into my brain through the use of what was at the time, and I think probably beginning in maybe the 60s or 70s, but when I was a kid in the early 80s, it really was flourishing, and that is the technology of flannel graph. So what would happen, we would go down to this church basement and they would have an easel with a flannel felt board. And they would start telling us a story. And they would often tell us a story about a person like this who we're going to call Jonah. And Jonah gets this invitation to go preach, which he doesn't like very much. And so Jonah hops a boat, and Jonah gets on this boat. How many of you know exactly what I'm talking about? And then there's a storm, and then Jonah's thrown overboard, and it's a whole thing. That's how I learned the Bible. That's how I learned and we can't forget the big fish. That's how I learned the Bible. That's how I learned the stories from the Bible. But here's the thing: when they would take us down and they would teach us, and I bet many of you have had other experiences, but also if you're around my age bracket, you probably had similar experiences of being taught, whether it was through song or through flannel graph or whatever. You were taught these stories. But we weren't just taught stories. We were also taught interpretations of stories. And we didn't just learn the interpretations of stories. We learned the interpretation of stories, right? Not just a interpretation, not one of many interpretations, not one of many possibilities. We learned the interpretation, which meant that if we questioned the interpretation, we weren't just questioning the interpreter, right? The person who taught us, the person who said, this is what it means. Because the minute you read the Bible and say, this is what it means, you're not just telling people what it says, you are firmly in the territory of interpretation. But if we were to question that, we weren't just questioning the interpretation of the interpreter. We were questioning the Bible, and we were questioning God. Because ultimately, in this lens, God was the interpreter, and the Bible needed really no interpretation in that way. And so what happened is those interpretations, the interpretations, soon became doctrines, right? We were told stories that became interpretations, and then the interpretations. And then at some point, sort of layer after layer is being added. And suddenly we're dealing in the realm of doctrines, and doctrines could not be questioned because doctrines were just the truth, right? It was just this is the logical progression. We go from this, well, this says this, so this must mean this, so we must believe this. And layer after layer after layer, year after year after year, these interpretations and doctrines were reinforced again and again and again. And they were often done through repetition. How many of us have heard the same song about the same Bible story or the same Bible story a bajillion times in our lives? So repetition. It was also reinforced through guilt, shame, and fear. Right? It's being repeated, but then there are all these other layers that get added in. If you're struggling with it, if you're doubting, well, there's this thing called guilt. And if you aren't measuring up, there's this thing called shame. And if you don't, all of that, then you're going to have a real problem. If you don't trust this, believe it, accept it, affirm it exactly as we're telling you, then ultimately you have a big problem. And it's not just with us. It's not just with the pastor or the deacons or elders or Sunday school teacher. It's not just with the denomination. You ultimately have a problem with God. And so much of what we called faith was ultimately not about faith. It was about belief maintenance. It was about taking everything literally and holding it with certainty. And the point was almost believing things that were difficult to believe, right? Like part of what made it true, air quotes, was that it seemed almost impossible or really difficult to believe. Like, how do you know the earth was made in 6 literal 24-hour days? Well, it seems really, based on the evidence, it seems kind of unlikely and impossible. So it must be true, right? The more outlandish, the more outrageous, the more difficult to believe, the more true it made us feel like it was, at least in my context. And that's kind of what made it faith, right? You're believing in something that is outlandish almost. But what we're learning is that doubt and faith are not opposites, right? That's often how it's presented. You either have faith or you have doubt. But actually, faith and doubt throughout the scriptures, they play together. They're partners. They go together. There's this great line at the end of the Gospel of Matthew where Jesus appears on a mountain to his disciples. And most translations say that some believed or some worshiped and some doubted, but it's actually not that. It actually says they worshiped and doubted. They're doing both. I believe, help my unbelief is another way it ends up popping up in scripture. The actual opposite of doubt, the actual opposite of faith is certainty. The opposite of faith, if you think about faith as trust, right, is I don't know, but I trust. I'm not certain, but I trust. The opposite of that would be certainty. Then after all that time many of us spent in the effort, learning and maintaining, because it really was about belief maintenance. I mean, so much of what collective gathering was, whether it was in a Sunday school classroom or a small group or a church service, was getting together and reaffirming for each other that we're all on the same page and we all believe all the same things, then we're all still in the club. And after all that time and effort spent learning and maintaining the quote unquote right way of believing, for so many of us, and it's happening for more and more and more of us, is we're no longer able to maintain it. Some things began happening. I like to think of it, we live under this like sacred canopy and that's how I grew up. The first 12 years of my life, I lived under this sacred canopy where everything I was taught made sense, where we did this and this happened exactly as we expected it. Everything just worked. Everything just made sense. And then at some point, some things happened and things stopped making sense. At some point, some things happened and it began to poke holes in that sacred canopy. And I could no longer assume that was the ceiling. Does that make sense? I began to notice that through those holes in the sacred canopy, there was something much bigger, much wider, much more expansive, much more interesting than I'd ever been taught. And for many of us, we are now sitting in a place where we would say we're maybe use the language of deconstruction or faith shift or transformation or change, whatever. We look back at where we were 2 years ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, maybe more. And we look at where we were then and we look at where we are now and we realize that something has happened for us along the way. And it's happening for people all the time, right? More and more right now it's happening. How does that happen? Father Richard Rohr says that the catalyst for change and transformation is often one of two things, and sometimes both of them together, and that is great love or great pain or suffering. That what often catalyzes us to change our perspective, especially about things like religion. I mean, we can change our opinion about a lot of things. As a little kid, I hated green beans. Now I'm a fan. Right? It wasn't a big seismic shift for me. It was something I grew into. But if we're going to change our minds about something significant, especially when something as important to us as our religious faith and belief, then Rohr says, and I think it's been true in my experience and the experience of a lot of people I've talked to, that it's probably one of two things or some combination of them. That is something, great love moves you or great pain and suffering moves you. And so what we've seen over the last decades is some people have begun to shift their faith because of the great love that they've had for their children. Children who have come out LGBTQ plus to them. When faced with the choice between their child and their faith or their church, they chose their child, which is the exact right choice to make. If you're watching this and you are in a church setting where you are being forced to choose between what is being presented to you as your church, your faith, your God, and your child, you will actually be picking your God and your faith if you choose your child. That is the Jesus way. And for some people, part of what made them leave the church of their youth or leave the faith of their youth or leave the thing they've known their entire lives was great love compelled them to do so. For others, it was born of the pain of grief and loss that sort of defied the certainty and assumptions that we've been indoctrinated with. Perhaps it was the deep pain and disappointment of seeing people who, and this is really, really true in the past, less than 10 years, as we've seen the evangelical shift around the rise of Donald Trump. We've seen people who, at least for me, the people who taught me the beliefs and values that I had as a kid and who taught me that this is the way that you're supposed to be, who have compromised those values for political or social power. And I mean, the list could go on and on and on. People who have made really important theological faith shifts because of great love, and people who have made really important theological faith shifts because of great pain. And while every journey is unique, there are some similarities that overlap, right? That's what's really interesting about these journeys is we're all our own unique sort of collection of thoughts and feelings and experiences. And there are things that are just going to be unique and personal to us. And yet when you lay our stories out, even with all the differences of life and experience and geography and all of that, you can trace some similar threads going throughout these stories. And at least in my own journey and in the journey of many of you I've talked to, the only thing I knew early on, because when my faith was disintegrating around me, I didn't know very much, but I knew that with everything I didn't know and everything I couldn't name, what I did know deep in my bones is that I could not go back. Even if I wasn't sure what forward might look like, I knew that going backward was not going to be an option. And I think I use this illustration a lot, but one of the things that happens at our house, it seems like all too often, is we get a brand new box of cereal. Somebody opens the box of cereal, then somebody breaks the rule and they pull the plastic bag inside the box of cereal out and open it. And it just never goes back in the box the same way, right? Like the box is now warped and wonky. The bag, there's displacement. It just never goes back the same way. And for those of us who our sacred canopy has been punctured, it just never goes back the same way. You can never put the questions back in the box. They're still there. And even if you choose what many people some people at least choose to do is to not pay attention to them, to not engage them. There's too much to lose. There's a lot of fear. And so we're just going to ignore that and pretend like it's not there. It's still there, right? It's still there in the periphery. It's there. The questions still haunt. The questions still chase us around. And so even though many of us have known that we don't know for sure what forward looks like, but we do know we can't go back. Now, in response to these faith shifts, some people have decided to leave church altogether, to leave faith altogether. And I just want to say that's a valid response. It's a valid response to the experience, to the trauma, to the hurt, to the pain, to the suffering, to the toxicity. It is a valid response to say, for me to be a healthy, whole human being, I just need to be away from this. That is a valid response. And as a pastor, sometimes I fill the role for people of helping them transition out of their faith in what I hope is a healthy way. But that's not what everybody does. It's not what everybody's response is. There are others of us who still feel some connection and longing to be part of the Christian tradition in some way, and we want to stay. We want to remain a part of this tradition. And so the question I want to ask in this series is, what does that look like? What does it look like to want to remain as part of this tradition? Is it possible when you have more questions than answers, when you have doubts, when you have uncertainties, when the word God for you, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, and then next week, when the word God begins to shift in meaning for you, or when your understanding of the Jesus story no longer centers around this debt being paid to get this angry God off of your back, is it possible to remain? And what I found is I think it is. And I want to talk in this series about what that looks like. So Unlearning, this series, is about this journey. It's about leaving and it's about staying. It's about a going away and it's about a coming home, all wrapped up into the same experience. Because for those of us who our faith is shifting, and I always am a little leery when somebody uses deconstructed or shifted in the past tense, with the assumption that it's over. In my experience in the last 20 years of this journey, there's always something new to learn. There's always a new shift, something new to deconstruct. And so as we think about it, it's all rolled up into one experience. It's a leaving, but it's also a return. It's It's a going away and a coming back all at the same time. So it's not about, what I want to say in this series is it's not just about deconstructing something that for many of us no longer works. It's also about trying to sort out, what do we do next? What do we do when we no longer just want to say what we don't believe anymore? What do we do when we maybe get to the place where there's a lot I don't know, but I have a certain rest and peacefulness about what I don't know. And so what if we started throwing some spaghetti at the wall and tried to figure out, I don't know, is that a metaphor? Everybody knows you throw it to the wall. If it sticks, it's done. What if we start throwing some spaghetti at the wall and just try to figure out what a way forward for us to be honest about our experience, to be honest about our questions and our doubts, to be honest about what we can no longer believe or affirm. And at the same time, make space for something new to emerge and to give shape to our faith. And so that's what we're going to explore in this series. And I want to give you 3 metaphors because metaphors are really, really important. Metaphors matter. When people use a metaphor and they say, oh, that's just a metaphor, that means you don't understand how important metaphors are, because our reality is dealt with in metaphor. And so we're going to explore that also in this series. Everything we're going to talk about is going to have some sort of metaphor associated with it. But I want to give you 3 metaphors for this next process, this looking for what is coming beyond just the process of maybe the shifting and the deconstruction we're experiencing. And the first metaphor is one that is pretty common and is pretty early in for me. When people started talking about deconstruction, people then started talking about reconstruction. And we've used that metaphor around Grace Point for quite a while. There's a lot near our house that used to have a bank on it, and the bank got completely leveled and torn down. And now there's a sign on the lot that says something new coming soon, and they're building a new kind of structure. That's sort of what we're talking about with reconstruction, right? Is something has been destroyed, the lot's been leveled, and now something new is being built in its place. That is a really helpful metaphor for what a lot of people are trying to do. And it names the experience for a lot of people. And I totally acknowledge that. That metaphor for me has become increasingly less helpful, because what I've realized is that once this lot is leveled and once something new is built, there's something new built there. And in order to build something new again, do you know what's going to have to happen? There's going to have to be another process. Somebody's going to have to bring another backhoe in there, or another wrecking ball, or whatever they bring in. And they're going to have to tear that down all over again, level it all off again, and then begin to rebuild it again. So if your metaphor that has been useful for you is reconstruction, I don't want to take that from you. I just want to name that in my own experience. Reconstruction, while it was really helpful at one point, no longer is the metaphor that maybe is most meaningful for me. But if it is for you, then I hope that what this series enables you to do is to figure out what maybe some of the, what are some 2x4s and some nails and some shingles that are laying around that may be helpful to you on the process. I also want to talk about the second metaphor, and this one has really become very helpful to me over about the last probably 5 or 6 years, and that is the metaphor of reimagining. And what I like about this is, first of all, that many of us were taught the exact opposite when it comes to faith. We were taught to not bring our imaginations, to not bring our curiosity, to not bring our creativity. And so what I love about this metaphor is it actually engages all of those wonderful things about being human. We have imagination, we have creativity, we have questions, we can bring curiosity, we can bring all of that to the experience of shaping what the future of our faith might look like. And so reimagining is not going to a new fixed place where everything is now, we got a lock and key ready for you to move in. Reimagining understands that this is an open, creative, and evolving process, and that we're going to bump up against things again and again and again, things that 5 years ago didn't seem problematic or didn't seem challenging or didn't seem like it needed to be rethought at all. But now, where our journey has taken us, that's exactly where we've ended up. And now we have to think about that. And so reimagining really is just sort of one of those, let's come back to the drawing board. Let's leave everything on the table. Let's be open. Let's be creative when it comes to how we understand our faith. Let's understand that faith is an evolving. If we think about faith as a living organism, It's evolving and changing and growing over time. And that is not a lack of faithfulness, but that's actually how living things work. We grow, we change, we evolve over time. And so in this series, I hope for some of you, what we're able to do around things like God or Jesus or specific doctrines that have become problematic is I hope we're able to help you figure out what doesn't work about that, but then creatively reimagine to engage your questions and your curiosity and your intuitions and what your gut tells you and all of that as you begin to think about what the future of your faith might look like. And then this last metaphor is a new one for me in the last several months, actually. And it sort of was really driven home for me by a video I happened to see going across Twitter. And so we're going to try to I'm going to try to have that video playing right now. And so I'm going to talk through it just in case, one, the video doesn't work, or two, you're listening to this on podcast and can't see it. But what in this video, there's this sort of apocalyptic looking landscape. Like everything just looks like it's been totally fried. And somebody's walking along, jabbing something in the ground, and then stepping on it and moving forward. Well, this what you're watching here, this person has a name. Her name is Leslie Dart. She's in British Columbia, and she is participating in a post-wildfire reforesting project. She's planting seedlings and saplings. There was a wildfire that went through and completely destroyed the forest, and it was just left, this charred remain. And then she's coming through and she is planting. She actually planted, believe it or not, 4,500 seedlings in one day. Now here's what's interesting. When she plants this tree, it is not a fully grown tree. She's not planting cedars, right? They're not bringing in fully grown trees and trying to reroot them in the ground. That's not what's happening here. Those trees have all burned down. Those trees are all gone. But what she is doing is she's planting small, tiny little seedlings that over time, given the right condition, given the right care and the right attention, are going to grow into something else. And at some point, some of those trees may end up going away again or becoming something else. And that ends up being okay because more will be planted. This reforestation, this understanding that even when wildfires come through, that something new and something life-giving, like a tree, can be replanted, reforested, and life can be given again. And no doubt there are other metaphors. For some of you, I hope what we're doing in this series is we're planting seedlings. Not all of them may take, not all of them may grow into a mighty cedar, but at least what may happen is you begin to reforest your faith with something new and life-giving, with new ways of seeing, new ways of thinking, new ways of understanding, ways that don't feel like you're having to do mental gymnastics all the time, ways that allow you to embrace mystery, because what we're not trying to do here is conquer mystery. We're not trying to say we have it all figured out. We're not trying to say there are no questions, but actually it's the opposite. There is ultimate mystery. We're going to talk about God a lot next week. And in some ways, all we're going to be talking about is ultimate mystery. But metaphors are so important. And there are no doubt metaphors beyond these that exist and metaphors that we've yet to invent that we'll need to invent in the future because of our experiences and our questions. The metaphors are the vehicles through which we attempt to wrestle with and talk about mystery. They help us give shape to something that is ultimately undefinable. And next week, we're going to begin our Unlearning series in earnest by talking about the ultimate metaphor, and that is God. And when I call God a metaphor, sometimes people get angry or they get frustrated. It sounds like maybe I'm suggesting that God is just something we made up to explain things. And no doubt there are some people who would say that's exactly what God is, something we made up to explain things that are difficult to explain. But that's actually not what I mean when I say God is a metaphor. When I say God is a metaphor, I mean the word God and all of the images we've created to explain and describe, and all the doctrines and dogmas and all the songs and all the poems and all the words and everything that we've created, even the word God itself, are all metaphors that we have created in an attempt to explain, to describe, to understand the ultimate mystery we point at with the word God. There are metaphors that enable us to attempt to talk about the reality that holds everything together and that I believe deep in my bones is trying to move everything, calling everything forward. Our ideas of God are not God, and it's really important to remember that. Our metaphors for God aren't God. And next week, we're going to begin really digging in by unlearning God as the man upstairs. So I hope at some point in this introduction, you have seen yourself, you've seen your story, that you've seen maybe a path that you're looking. Maybe you're looking to sort of try to reconstruct your faith. You're looking to reimagine. You're looking to reforest and replant, whatever that looks like for you. My hope is over the next, who knows however long, because we're going to keep this going as long as you all keep bringing questions and curiosities up. So however long this series goes, my hope is that you continue to see yourself and your journey in it, and that you find helpful places to hook in and hook on and grab a hold and figure out what the future of your faith is going to look like, because that's what we're trying to create together, trying to create the future of faith for each of us, and also doing that in community with one another. Thanks for being here. We're so glad you've joined us this week, Grace Point. Until next week, we love you, grace and peace.
When all your hopes are shattered and you feel like your soul is at sea, your dreams don't seem to matter, your heart is bruised and battered, and you can't feel anything. Love anyway, love anyway. When your world has gone to hell, no story left to tell. Love anyway.
I have been a long lost pilgrim, built my home on fragile faith, been the victim and the villain, still the father to my children, owner of a heart that's slowly changed. Love anyway, love anyway. When your world is gone to hell, no story left to tell. Love anyway. Broken promises, truth and consequence, pride and tenderness, all those failed attempts, joy and happiness, joy